I just wanted to ask you, there's a perception at the moment, particularly in Australia, maybe globally, that communications is shrinking, that the industry is shrinking, budgets are shrinking, but in essence, the opportunities that arise from this world, this internet, the technology, the digital platforms, you know, how big are these opportunities? That if there's a load of people out there, a load of communicators to be storytellers, what does that leave us with?
Well, if you think about the traditional publishers, you know, the reason they're in such crisis is because the amount of money you can make selling ads in print is so much greater than the amount of money you can make selling ads digital. And because as you move to digital, which everyone's doing, we as consumers, that's what we've done, our tolerance for advertising is entirely different. And our ability to get around traditional advertising is much, much greater. That's why there's a boom in native advertising or branded storytelling or someone paying someone who has an audience. Anyone who has an audience is undoubtedly reliant on an advertising model to try to make that work. So if I'm a traditional publisher, I'm totally dependent on selling ads somehow. And the amount of ads I can spend was much, that I can gain, the amount of ads I can place is far less beneficial to me than it used to be. So this whole native model is becoming really a big thing for me to be able to say, okay, well, for $1,000 an article, $2,000 an article, let's place that. Now we're talking, right? So there's a huge shift in the media landscape, in the publishing landscape, and the traditional ways we define our roles. I mean, you know, I used to be a marketer. I'm not sure that that's what I really am anymore. Do you know what I mean? So it's like we were all existing in little silos and saying, well, this is... What companies used to do is say, well, you know, this internet thing's really taking off. We need someone to build a website. Let's get a web team. And then, gee, this, you know, search engine stuff's really big. Apparently it's important if you get on page 1 versus page 2. Let's get a team of people who can do that. And then social media, wow, let's get a social media team. And content marketing, let's get a content marketing team. So it's just a new way of looking at silos. So we've continually built out and extended silos. The promise of social and content is that you can use them to unite the rest, to break down the rest of those silos. I think the traditional way that we're measuring and thinking about our industries is wrong. I think there's enormous opportunities in the amount of money that's locked up in the traditional media spend that is highly inefficient and isn't functioning and delivering anywhere near the same level. You can achieve far greater outsized results by approaching it through a different model. That's the current opportunity. So yes, that industry is absolutely in siege. You know, if you're in a traditional agency environment or traditional media house, I mean, it's horrible, right? But the opportunities on this side are absolutely enormous. So the opportunities for people who see the model, because this can only grow. It's the change of focus. It's the change of what that thing used to be called. And okay, this is how I used to make my money. I still have the same skills. I can just apply them over here and do something totally different because this area is growing. So it's very threatening for people in roles, but there's a huge landscape of different opportunities that are emerging, and there will be in 5 years' time to look totally different again, I'm sure.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. If anyone has a question. No? People
no one wants that prize?
Sorry, no. Jeff Fisher.
Thanks, David. Todd, we've been talking exclusively probably about external environment. A lot of the organisations, I'm sure that we work in, certainly the one I work in, undergoing massive, massive change at the moment. And I've been sitting here thinking about how to apply this internally. Have you got some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of organisations are, Dave mentioned before, building internal journalistic resources is a new thing for a lot of organisations in the corporate sector. That's been a fairly new thing. Having those, I think ultimately the power of the internal employees, the stories that are going on within an organisation have incredible resonance both internally and externally. And again, there's a few companies that are really on the cutting edge of actually focusing internally on the storytelling and using those stories to attract new customers, new audiences, and also new talent into the organisation. There's a lot of startups have that model. I've worked with some startups who have, their number 10 employee was an internal storyteller. Right? It's a very different, it's a very intentional way of thinking. How do we understand that continuum between us and the audience? And somewhere between that lies this credibility. Yes, we have to understand our audience and speak to them and give them value, but we also have to be something. And the internal, every organisation, constant change, constant restructuring, constant, upsizing, downsizing, resizing, squishing. The environment's obviously very complex always, but having a consistency around talking with authenticity from, say, the leadership to that organisation. It's less about frequency always and more about do you have a plan? Is there a strategy and a commitment to actually leading with the things that people care about? The same way you think about an audience and their pain points outside the organisation and how to build a content calendar around that. It's exactly what you should be doing for any change management process inside the company. And the tools that are available now, internal collaboration tools, these platforms that didn't exist, that required face-to-face visibility before, it's far, far different than what it used to be. I think there's a lot of opportunities.